Back on Closer Look on this Wednesday, the 30th day of July, with Michael Friscolanti. I'm Scott Sexsmith. You know, it's funny. I can't believe we're almost at August. You never see January and February go as fast as July and August.
That's for sure. Oh, man, don't remind me.
Yeah. Before you know it, the kids well, already you're seeing back to school stuff and ads.
It's the best time of the year. It's also Labor Day's like on September 2nd this year, right? So this summer's over.
That's right.
Summer's over.
Was it Staples that ran the campaign, The Most Wonderful Time of the Year?
Yeah.
With the leaf falling on the side.
It's the best. Yeah,
I remember
kids
that.
are screaming. Parents are loving it.
Yeah. Steve Paikin coming up tomorrow night on Closer Look. Bonnie Crombie, Ontario Liberal leader, on Friday. I am excited, though, about tonight's episode with our very own Jessica Smith-Cross and the story of Tony Miele.
Yeah, the Trillium team who we often go to chat about the big stories of the day. They're our Village Media's team at Queen's Park. They do fantastic daily journalism, and they do great investigative journalism. They really dig deep into issues impacting what goes on behind closed doors at Queen's Park and beyond. And they, Jessica Smith-Cross, the editor-in-chief there, and Charlie Pinkerton, one of our great investigative reporters, spent a long time working away in a profile about Tony Miele, who's the head of the PC party's fundraising wing, basically. Yeah. He's their chief fundraiser. And they've discovered that he had a lot of connections and was actually works as a paid consultant to developers.
Yes.
So in one breath, he's asking big developers and others for donations to the party, and on the other, he's getting paid by some of these developers to consult on big projects. So it raises a lot of interesting questions that we're going to get into today with Jess. And obviously this story triggered a lot of attention from opposition politicians, from people in the development industry. And it's a great example of the great journalism we do. And it's a great example, too, of – we're going to talk about this with Jess – that, they asked the Premier Ford about this story after it came out. And his response was very interesting in how he tried to shift gears on telling people what's really important in the province right now, which you should really be focused on, which is not this. And we're going to talk a little bit about why we need to be focused on all of it. It's a great conversation.
Always great to welcome to the show Jessica Smith-Cross, editor-in-chief at the Trillium. Jess, it seems like it's been forever, but as always, great to see you.
Great to see you too, Scott. Hey, Frisco.
Hey, Jess. Nice to see you, although I do see Jess way more than you do, which is great.
It is probably, it's better for her than it is, yeah. All right, Jess, lots to talk about. Let's jump right in. Who is Tony Miele? He's obviously a very powerful person within Ontario politics, but I would imagine that most people within the province have likely never heard of him.
Yeah, that's right. He is pretty powerful. And you might have heard of him, actually, if you are a Ontario PC Party donor or supporter. If you've ever signed a petition for the party, your email inbox might be full of emails from him. He's the chief fundraiser for the party, and he's the guy who sends out all of those, please donate today to defeat the Liberals sort of emails. That's him. It's a big, important job. Raising money for the party is what propels the PCs to win election campaigns, run ads against their opponents. And Tony Miele's had this job for a long time, since before the days of the Doug Ford government.
With him at the helm as well, Jess, it's been a hugely successful run for the party. They've raised a lot of money, they kind of dominate the other parties in this. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. They're fundraising millions and millions more than their opponents. Now, there's usually a benefit to being in government when fundraising. It often gives you the edge, and the PCs certainly have that, and they've used it.
And the reason we're chatting today is yourself and Charlie Pinkerton, one of your reporters at the Trillium, spent a lot of time digging into a large profile about Tony Miele, something you started working on quite a while ago. What were you hearing, and sort of what did you discover as you went along in reporting on him and his dealings?
I guess it all sort of started with this dump, if I can go there. There's a big controversy in legislature this spring about this bill that did a lot of things, but one of the things it did was remove an environmental assessment for a dump, and we sort of immediately wondered why. And we did some reporting on the owners of the dump and some fundraising that they had done, campaign contributions to the party. And my colleague, Charlie Pinkerton, best investigative reporter in Ontario, got a tip that Tony Miele, the party's chief fundraiser, had a business relationship with the owners of this dump. And so we started digging into that. There was some signs that he's been involved in the development industry for a long time. He had a government job that dealing with developers and selling off surplus lands. There'd been some reporting about this, but nobody really knows what he did or even who he was. The fundraising job is a volunteer gig. We decided it would be a good idea to look around and see more about him. We had sources talk to us about how much influence he has, how powerful guy in the party, and about how he's done this work with developers, this consulting work. And so what they said is basically, he has done this work for a long time under the radar. And some of the developers that he works with are those that we know of in Ontario politics because they donate to the party and because they can benefit from decisions that the government makes, like zoning orders that benefit their properties and stuff like that. And if you know anything about Ontario politics, the idea that the Ford government makes this decision to benefit their donors or these developer donors in particular is like the chief charge by the opposition parties. So it's relevant to the debate that they have, every day when the House is sitting, and this sort of adds a new complexion to that.
Mm-hmm. And was Miele involved in the dump?
We don't have evidence that Miele was involved in the government's decision in the dump at all. So we do have sources say that he has a business relationship with the owners. But as for the passage of the bill that made this environmental assessment go away, the government denied that he was involved. The company denied that he was involved. But what that led to is this wider look at the business work, the personal work that he does with these power player developers who are key to the PC party's fundraising and who seem to get decisions by the government that could affect the properties that they own and develop.
Absolutely. This is an obvious question, but for people who might not understand all the ins and outs, why is it relevant that the PC party's chief fundraiser would also be working as a paid consultant for developers, including developers who might be donating back to the party?
It's this sort of unholy mix of party fundraising, personal interest, and government decisions. We spend a lot of time trying to untangle how decisions are made, who's involved and in what capacity. And this adds to this in a way that Ontario politics wasn't aware of before.
So, Jess, once those dots were connected, how did Doug Ford react to the Trillium story?
That was an interesting moment. So I'm going to set the stage. The premier is, until recently, the chair of the Council of the Federation. So this is the group of all the country's premiers. They have a really important job right now, which is dealing with Trump and the tariffs and Canada's response to that. Doug Ford organized a huge summit of the Council of the Federation in Muskoka. He hosted some of them at his house, at his cottage there. At his big closing press conference happened to be the day that we published this story. And so one of our reporters did what we have to do, which is ask him for his comment on this thing. So surrounded by the country's premiers, he was asked, what do you think of the fact that your chief fundraiser is working for these developers who pay your party fundraising and have a stake in government decisions, and will he remain the chief of fundraising for your party? His first response was to say, to look around the room at the other premiers, and he's like, we all need political donations, which is probably true. The way that the current system is set up, they need political donations. And then he went on to say that the people have more important things on their mind right now than Tony Miele and his personal business, which is his personal business. One could challenge the idea that everybody needs political donations to that extent, and the way the system is set up. There's lively debate about that, but that was his first reaction. Well, we all need money to do politics.
Yeah, I'm sure he didn't love being asked that question in front of all the other premiers. Is that fair to say?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And of course, just a reminder, our viewer Jack Allen was on the show while he was in Huntsville.
That's right, yeah.
Covering this. So that's who was asking the questions. I guess it's a fair question, Jess, because obviously he would deflect all this reporting, great reporting, and say, hey, look, people are more concerned about way bigger issues right now. Nobody cares about what Tony Miele or what the PC party fundraising chief is doing. How do you counter that? Why should people in the province care about that?
We can care about two things at once, right? I think it is really important, the role that Doug Ford is playing with the other premiers, organizing the response to this big economic threat. No doubt about that. And I think that day to day, most people's lives do care more about the state of the economy than Tony Miele's business. I won't actually challenge that at all, but it does matter. The way that a government makes their decisions, the reasons that they make their decisions, the people involved matters a lot. And it is our job to dig there where we can and find out what we can and tell people about it. And some people do care about this very, very much. The response we've got to the story has been somewhat overwhelming.
Jess, I'm guessing once this broke, opposition politicians were like dogs on a bone with this thing.
Yes, they were very pleased to see that it was published. The only shame is that they're not able to bring it up in question period right now because the House is.
What was the reaction? What did opposition politicians have to say?
There was a bit of like a no surprise, and the same kind of things that they've been saying before, that this government makes decisions that it makes for the wrong reasons. It sort of bolstered their claims there. They haven't gone as far into Tony Miele's personal business. They haven't really commented on that. That's a hard thing for an opposition party to do, to draw the connections there that we did. They're keeping it to the line that they've used for a very long time, that the government is beholden to this group of developers.
Have you heard from Tony Miele since this story came out?
No.
Not yet. The bigger question, I think, speaking of what average Ontarians are concerned about, is what does all this mean for actually getting housing built in this province? I mean, this is an issue where we haven't seen the pace of building that we were promised or that the government was hoping to get. What does it mean for that?
Yeah, I saw more numbers out today about the province lagging behind, the housing shortage being the most acute here. So it was once a huge priority of this government to get a lot of housing built. There has been no big success there. Every time this issue comes up at Queen's Park, when we hear from people from the business community about making the decisions they need to make in order to build housing or get a mine developed or any big project, they need certainty. They need to be able to make a business plan. They need to say, okay, if I invest this money, if I put all this time and work into building this housing project, building this mine, I need to have pretty sure of the outcome that comes out. So any sort of shenanigans around who's getting an MZO, like a zoning order, will it be approved? Will it be revoked? Will there be a political controversy around it? That doesn't actually get anything built. It can do quite the opposite. So the political instability around the file has been, I think, one of the things that's causing a problem for Ontario getting enough housing built.
Yeah. And how does the Ford government react to the latest numbers that we're not getting the starts that we were hoping for?
They largely stopped talking about it. What was once an election promise to build 1.5 million homes has really been de-emphasized in the government's communications of late.
All right. Help bring us up to speed, Jess. When does the legislature come back in session?
Later on in the fall. I should have get the precise date for you.
That's okay. You don't want to put too far in your but I'm sure this will still be a big issue when the ledge does come back.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else we didn't ask you about this great piece that you wanted to touch on?
I think one of the things that I take away from it is that that side of the Ford government, the stories about who's doing what, the sort of back burner RCMP investigation, this stuff is still there. We are talking a lot about Trump, about Ford's Captain Canada role. That's still there. But the other stuff, the things that some of it dates from pretty early on in their mandate, that has caused a lot of this investigative reporting, it's still going on. It's not gone away yet, but it's sort of happening in the background.
Yeah, you mentioned, I'm glad you did. Do we know where the RCMP investigation stands on the Greenbelt scandal?
It is still going on, but they have not announced any kind of charges or the lack thereof.
And just for people to be clear, they likely would never do that unless there were charges. The RCMP doesn't come out every month and say, okay, everybody, here's where we are on this investigation. No. They're tight-lipped until these investigations actually come to an end.
All right, great stuff. Jessica Smith-Cross, Editor-in-Chief at the Trillium. Great to see you, Jess.
Great to see you too.
Always great to see Jessica Smith-Cross, Editor-in-Chief at the Trillium. And by the way, if you would like to get the inside scoop as to what's going on in Ontario politics, it's very easy to do.
There you go. Tell us how do you do it.
The Trillium.ca. It's as simple as that.
That's amazing. The internet.
Yeah, that's right. The old triple W. Go to Trillium.ca. You can become a Trillium insider today and find out what's going on in the province before the rest of us do.
Yeah, I just say this all the time, but I'm super proud of the network that Village has built here. We have amazing local news sites all over the province of Ontario and all different parts of the province. We have an amazing team at Queen's Park covering provincial politics and all things.
The largest team
of Queen's Park reporters for sure, and they do a great job. And a lot of their stuff runs in our local news sites as well. And we also have a great newsletter on Parliament Hill as well, Parliament Today. So as we talk about all the time on the show, we're growing and doing really great journalism, and we hope you follow along.
And coming soon, Closer Look Podcast.ca.
That's right. They're working overtime on this website.
If you could see how big the team was working on this site development, it is massive.
It's hundreds of people.
Blow you away.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. We're, as we've said, we've been giving this podcast kind of a test run throughout the summer and kind of ironing out the kinks, but knock on wood. Is this wood? I don't even know what this is made of.
It's fake wood, but
fake wood.
It's buying what you're selling.
It's been really great so far. We've had some really talked about some impactful stories. Had some really interesting guests on.
Yeah.
Like you just said, Steve Bacon's coming on tomorrow to talk about interesting. We're teaming up with Steve here in Village with some interesting things. So we're going to talk about that. And then Ontario Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie's coming on Friday to talk about what Nate Erskine-Smith told us on the podcast a few days ago.
It's funny how it all just weaves its way around.
And I don't want to tease people, but you had a really great, interesting conversation. We're not going to tell them with who today.
Yes.
About another potential interview coming up
yes.
Later on the show that we're very interested in hoping that works out. It's going to be exciting if it does.
Very exciting. All right, closer look at villagemedia.ca. Any questions, comments, thoughts about the show? We would love to hear from you. You follow us as well. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, YouTube, and of course across the Village Media Network and wherever you get your favorite podcasts. For Michael Friscolanti, Editor-in-Chief here at Village Media, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for watching tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7 right here on Closer Look.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.